So with the massive success of I Am Music from Playboi Carti, sold around 300K first week. Whole Lotta Red sold 100K for context. Fans have kind of started to debate how much Ken Carson will sell for More Chaos in its first week. For context as well, A Great Chaos sold about 50K first week. Now, some fans think, man, Ken Carson's about to sell 200K, he's gonna go crazy. And others are like, I don't even know if he's gonna be able to maintain. That's also a little crazy. And most people think he's gonna sell about like 80K-ish, all right? So I'm gonna give you my thoughts on it. All right, so first of all, A Great Chaos debuted at number 11 on the US Billboard 200, earning 49,000 album equivalent units. And it was like Ken Carson's first breakout album, right? The album was also, and I know it sounds crazy, but it was released on October 20th of 2023. It's quite a long time ago, all right? And at this point, it's sold over 500,000 units. So it's certified gold, you know, it's done well, okay? These were great sales for Great Chaos. I want to give you some reference though. I'm going to use Yeat. Yeat's 2093 sold 70K first week, okay? And his album after that, Lifestyle, sold 90K or 89K with 60K pure. So Yeat has sold more than him twice. Of course, Yeat drops more. You also look at his Spotify. Yeat's Spotify is like more turned. He has 12 million monthly. Ken Carson has 8 million monthly. So, you know, by the way, I don't use Spotify, so, but I don't really have anything saved. But what I kind of want to point out is the streaming numbers. Look at Yeat's biggest songs and look at how fat those streams are, and then look at Ken's, you know, it just doesn't compare, you know. Look at Yale, that is 370 million streams, and then Yeat has like 3 songs bigger than that, you know. And he has so many more songs with like 100 million streams or 200 million, okay? One thing to note though is that Yeat has a really large global presence, like in Europe. So I guess you could say the streams don't count as much because they actually don't pay as much. And I just think America is like the market where all the hype originates from. That's why you think of both Yeat and Ken Carson. Ken Carson is the artist with more hype right now. It's true. Right? Anyways, back to his sales. So let's go back to Great Chaos, right? And I kind of want to crawl through his releases and show you how much he killed it. So the single for A Great Chaos was I Need You. And that was dropped on February 14th, 2023. I'm not gonna even say it was like the single for A Great Chaos because it was so many months before, but that was what like generated the hype leading up to the album, other than the snippets, of course, right? And I also want to explain where he was before. He had just dropped X, which is like the sequel to Project X, and that was like his most stagnant album creatively and just commercially. I feel like part 2 of Project X, it was more bloated. It had some good songs, but it wasn't like, you know. Anyways, this single I Need You, which released February 14, 2023, was a really good song and did really well, all right? But then A Great Chaos, you know, it sold what it sold. But if you just look through the singles, it was also a really good album. Plus, you know, like 8 months later, they dropped the deluxe, which is a pretty long time to wait to drop a deluxe. And they added 8 tracks, and the deluxe had a crazy amount of hype. It had songs like Jennifer's Body. It had songs like Sydney Sweeney, and songs like Fighting My Demons, which is on the original version of the album. We're going crazy on TikTok too. So Ken Carson kind of blew up on TikTok, and he just released solid music. You know what I mean? I will say though that this music is like distorted. I saw a clip of Bob Lamb describing it where he's like, it's grungy. It definitely is not as mainstream as like, you know, like Lil Uzi or someone would make, you know? But anyways, that's kind of where he's been at. Other than this one single he dropped, Delusional, which he dropped 4 months ago. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a huge fan of the single. It's cool, but I don't know. To me, Ken Carson shines with his melodies. He can make really catchy songs on like I'm being very like basic with my descriptions. Don't roast me. But, like distorted, synthy, whatever, like Ken Carson type, you know? Delusional just seemed a little lazy and like, I don't know, it just didn't catch me, you know? A lot of fans felt the same way as well. So I think he needs a stronger single, to be honest. Of course, he could just ride the hype, and I'm sure he'll sell like 70, 80K. On top of that, you know, music dropping, and I kind of changed my opinion on this. Before I was saying like, look, after Carti drops, they're not going to care about anybody after, but, okay, 2 things actually. Carti is teasing another album, Baby Boy, but, you know, due to his history, I don't even know who knows if that's actually dropping. Like the chances of that dropping for real, just so up in the air, who knows, right? I think music dropping kind of was like this activation event for all these Opium fans. If you think about it, a lot of these fans were like, man, I don't even care about Cardi anymore. You know, every time he makes an announcement, he just caps whatever he drops. Everyone's like, oh my god, Cardi, you know? With Ken Carson, some of those Cardi fans who weren't paying attention as much, or just mainstream like fans who are kind of like into the SoundCloud-ish rap wave, like that younger hip-hop scene, they become more active listeners of like this sound now. I'm not saying Ken is going to drop anything similar to I Am Music, but him and Cardi are still in the same lane, right? I'm not like a huge Ken fan, so I can't like name Grailed snippets, to be honest. Probably are some. I just think Ken Carson is like the hottest out of this whole, and I'm gonna use the word underground just because that's what people call him. They'll call Ken Carson underground. Some people even call Yeet underground. So stupid. But it's like Ken Carson, Lucky, you know, Destroy Lonely, Yeet, whoever, right? And then obviously there's like the Netspend, Osama Sunday, whatever, right? But out of everybody, Ken Carson has the craziest hype. It's just undeniable. And I think obviously part of that is because he's associated with Opium. But another reason is just because over the past year and a half, musically, other than that one single he dropped, Delusional, he's done really well. Like, you know? Another thing Ken Carson was like a master of doing was getting snippets to become really, really, really hyped. You know, like that song Paranoid he has with Destroy Lonely. Like, I remember there was like a sped up version that they were teasing on live. Fans wanted it so much. Thought it was hard. Mewtwo, obviously fans wanted it. Sydney Sweeney, of course, people wanted. Jennifer's Body. Like, he's just really good at getting snippets hot. All right. He's also been teasing More Chaos for a minute. Him and his like manager on Twitter. Get his name. So there's that. But obviously, like the real rollout hasn't started. You know. So back to the whole sales thing, right? So let's look at this one graph, right? The week before Ken Carson dropped, he had 5 million monthly listeners. After he dropped, I'm just going to like November when he peaked back then, he was at 7 million monthly listeners, right? Then they dropped the deluxe over the summer and he was at like 7 million. And in October of last year, he peaked at 10 million monthly listeners. Right now he's at like 7-8, okay? And in like August, September, before he dropped A Great Chaos, he was at like 4.5 million. So he like almost doubled in size, I would say, okay? Just by that fact alone, I think he's gonna sell 70. You know what I mean? I also really believe there's like almost no competition for a guy like Ken. You know what I mean? There's really just Yeet. Is Lonely even competition? I guess you could say Uzi is grouped in there. Yeah, I don't know who's selling like in that scene. Like, maybe Lucky, if Lucky went crazy with a rollout and had like a single that started doing really well that he's gonna include on his album, I could see him doing like 50, but he usually sells like 30. He's independent. He tastes that type of stuff. I think just based off that alone, he can do 70. But that's like bare minimum. You know what I mean? I think if he drops a really good single, like Overseas, for example. Overseas was a great single. You know what I mean? If he drops a single that caliber, that's all he really needs. And then obviously the project has to be good. And I think he's touching 80K. Now, for him to hit like 70, 80K, 60, 70, yeah, 60 like 75-ish K, all right? For him to hit like 90K, 100K, and I'm just saying like without bundles. I'm just saying purely off streaming and pure sales. I feel like he'll definitely have to wait a little bit after this whole Cardi hype dies down. Because right now, all people care about is Cardi, you know? Okay, another thing as well that I kind of skipped over was the length of the album. If he drops a really long album, like a 20, 25 song album, he can probably do 100K. I just think what it really comes down to is him properly curating the hype. Because he's already like the most hyped artist out of the bunch that I just mentioned. He just needs to capture it and direct it, you know? And what that really comes down to, and this sounds so simple, but I feel like all he has to do is do the same thing he did last time. He's a ton of snippets, which he did last time. He really needs like a killer single. Delusional is just not it. Drop a killer single, maybe even 2. Oh, you know what else would also help? A Cardi feature. I feel like at this point, just like, come on, give it to him. You know what I mean? And I think that's all. So I know this is kind of long-winded, but I try to provide as much context as possible, really explain to you where I'm coming from. But I really don't believe it's that crazy. It would be that crazy if Ken sold like 100 without any bundles or anything, you know? Because musically, over the last like 1.5 years, it's been pretty good. The only thing is, and my word choice might be a little off, but the stuff he makes is kind of like off kilter, a little alternative, grungy, you know what I mean? For rap. Like, a song like Fighting My Demons is just not gonna appeal to certain people, you know what I mean? And this is kind of even the problem that Cardi had with I Am Music. By the way, I am doing a full review on that. You know, there wasn't that one song, like, I forget who said this. Elliot Wilson said, he was like, oh, the reason why I wouldn't call Playboi Carti a superstar is because, look, he just did this album and went crazy. And I think Cardi's a superstar, but he was like, look, he didn't have that one smash hit single that went #1 or something. You know what I mean? And I don't agree that he's not a superstar, but you can kind of say that about Ken too. I mean, I guess he has Yale. That's not like, I'm just saying it would be cool for Ken to have one song that just goes, you know? And that song can't be like some super distorted bass, like shaky. It has to have like the perfect balance. Think like Sky from Cardi's Whole Lotta Red, you know? Yeah, other than that, really all I have to say about sales predictions, where everything's at. I'm gonna end the video here. See y'all tomorrow, and yeah, peace.